It has never been just a game.
Our test is in the stands.
History tells us these fields, courts, and victories have never been colorblind.
The director of the American Indian Movement met with Braves officials and asked them to change the team's name.
Or devoid of politics.
You think he's got what it takes?
I hope so.
And you want me to go somewhere and fight, but you won't even stand up for me here at home.
And we know this story didn't start by taking a knee.
No, this has nothing to do with race. I never said anything about race.
That we're here to try and change things. You know, the point is to try to revolutionize human consciousness.
This month, we're going to peel back the layers.
So it's our choice to join their league or not join their league at the end of the day.
Tonight is part 2.
You have to understand they're not a commodity, they're human beings.
We're sitting down with a range of sports fans from across Seattle.
The seats and the fans are so much closer to the players, and they can hear everything.
Change takes a long time, but we can't change the world overnight.
My name is Jenna Hanchard. I'll be asking the questions, but I'm no expert. My hope is that we can all learn something from these conversations on race and sports.
I hope you guys plan to eat a little bit.
Yeah, I don't eat onions, so hopefully.
Okay, there's no onions. Look at you.
I definitely do. I'm hungry.
Ladies first.
Oh no, I'm good, thank you. I'm not.
You ain't messing it. You ain't.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. I'm gonna dig in.
Juan's not gonna be shy.
Yeah, we got hummus. We got some tortilla chips. No onions. Okay, so I wanted to start off with some moments that you all may remember throughout the history of sports that may have been pretty big. One is recent, Earl Thomas.
I mean, you admire a guy that's helped you win a Super Bowl. He becomes a hero as an athlete in your community. And although he's making more money in one season than I will probably make in my lifetime, you can't help but be frustrated for him because his ability right now to earn income at the position that he plays in the sport that he loves is right now in jeopardy. So I could certainly understand the frustration. I wish he went about it in a more professional way.
And some people said he was ungrateful. Like that was some of the characterization, that he was ungrateful, that he should kind of just shut up and move on.
To me, it's this amazing gesture, not unlike, say, Kaepernick taking a knee or Marshawn Lynch standing for the Mexican national anthem. It just totally breaks the fourth wall in that it's not one big happy family. And, sure, the Seahawks have the right to make a business decision, and Earl hoped to be traded, but in that gesture, he explodes the entire false narrative that it's all one big team and the 12s are part of it and that the Seahawks are all one big happy family. It's about money. Earl's a businessman.
This is an emotional game, probably the most emotional game that is played. I'm not ever coming back here, so I don't have to respect you on my way out. This is the last gesture. You know what I'm saying?
Do you agree with me that it was this sort of oddly beautiful gesture? Do you agree?
Yeah, I'm hip hop, so yeah, I agree. You know what I'm saying? That's probably something on some NWA or whatever, on that push-pull gravitation type thing, but it was the last hurrah, no matter what it was, and they had probably a better relationship, it might have been like, all right, Seahawks, I love you. It might have been a different finger. You know what I'm saying?
But I think it just goes back to we want our athletes to, be rough and tough on the field, and then when they are off the field, we want them to be quiet. We don't want to hear what they have to say socially. We don't want to, hear that they want more money. They're dealing with real life issues. And I think part of our society just wants them to shut up and play football or basketball or baseball.
What is the line? Shut up and dribble is that famous line of.
But at the same time, look at Marshawn Lynch, because he's one of the most famous guys for being a savage on the field. And then they want him to talk and he doesn't. And what do? They fine him for not talking. So he just does the minimum amount. But so they aren't happy with him just playing and not saying anything because they're fining him for not talking. But they want him to say the right things.
Mm-hmm.
To mutter the expected.
They want him to say the right thing.
Control the message that comes out. And he's a perfect example of they don't just want him to talk, just say what they want. He has to say something, but it better be the right thing.
You guys probably remember the moment after Sherman's tip play against the 49ers in 2013, right? Then afterward, of course, the famous moment with a sideline reporter. What's your name?
Andrews.
Yeah.
Don't you ever talk about me.
Yeah, and he totally goes off. There's some speculation that it was planned, that it was sort of an intentional so-called brand building. But in a way, the emotions that drive Sherman to be a laser-focused player are that very person who then explodes seconds after the game's over. And I feel like what is so crazy is to say, I want Earl, the firebrand on the field, who's just this total emotional firestorm, but I don't want him to be, God forbid, the guy who getting carted off flips off half the team.
And do you think that's racialized? I mean, do you think that for fans, and particularly white fans that are the majority of especially football, right, they want their players to be a certain way?
I think that it is racialized in that it's kind of an easy thing, but you know, that we love Gronkowski, the lovable white frat boy. You know, he gets drunk, DUI, or whatever the thing is, and it's lovable Gronk.
You talk about Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, and that somehow, I mean, I don't think it's across the board, it's not always racialized, but I think that when, you know, the easy term, of course, is that a player acts that way, he's called a quote thug. A white guy plays that and he's a kind of warrior or a lovable frat boy. Again, I think we become aware of this. I think it's not as bad as it was, say, 20 years ago, but I think that whole narrative of a racialized narrative in which Sherman comes off the field and yells at Aaron Andrews, and there was even people who called it a kind of slave narrative, or a kind of like a captivity narrative in which people claim that he was actually threatening her, which is absurd.
Yeah.
Whereas if, say, Roethlisberger does it, it's like boys will be boys, and it's not totally lovable Ben, but it's sort of like wink, wink, he's a really good quarterback.
Let me ask y'all about another incident, and let's bring it back to this one. The Palace Brawl, Ron Artest. You remember that one? What did you, like, what
Malice in the Palace?
The Malice in the Palace, yeah.
To the crowd?
Went onto the crowd and...
Well, at the end of the day, I'm gonna keep it for real with you. There's only so much you can really accept, because if he doesn't go into the crowd, do you know how many other people in the streets is gonna look at him and think they can just run up on him and throw a Coke at him and he can't do nothing because he's this stature? You know what I'm saying?
And they were saying racial slurs at him.
So I guess he had to let it be known, I'm beyond me being a basketball player, I'm a human. You know what I'm saying? I'm a person, and you can't disrespect me in this regard no matter what stature that I have.
I think fans think that players belong to them and that they can do and say,
That's big. That was big.
I feel like if you're cursing at a player and you're in the stands, if you're throwing stuff at players, you need to go. If you're a season ticket holder, you need to lose your tickets. I mean, it's so disrespectful, but it's that entitlement attitude, like, you play for us. I think some fans think that you play for us, we should be able to say and do what we want to do.
When I saw it, and I remember very vividly, the first thought that went through my mind was, I'm just surprised it doesn't happen more often. You know, and especially nowadays, the fans are much closer to the action. The seats are much closer. The way the stadiums are constructed, the seats and the fans are so much closer to the players, and they can hear everything. And I can't remember the specifics of the situation, but I certainly remember him going up and also the change that it brought to the NBA.
Well, that's the big part, right? The NBA blamed hip hop as kind of the crux, and hip hop was kind of used as this kind of false narrative, in my opinion at least, to kind of blame hip hop for causing this or inciting this. And they changed, they implemented a dress code, they implemented NBA cares.
That was David Stern, and you know, David mentioned Michael Jordan in regards to protecting his brand, basically informing the media how he wanted to be shot and put on camera. David Stern is the ultimate commissioner in the history of sport that protected his brand. And when he saw that, I mean, he realized that he had a problem, and he said, you know, I am going to fix it. I'm going to fix it for the owners who are paying me $10 million a year as commissioner. but also to those young kids who are in the 5th grade who are going to be playing the NBA in the future, I've got to fix it for them too.
And how about like, you about to give somebody some life-changing money though. You know what I'm saying? And you have a big possibility of losing all of the sponsorships by giving this guy this certain amount of money. My mom, if I asked her for $50, she want to know what for. You know what I'm saying? So I can only imagine owning an NBA franchise or NFL franchise team, and you have to give this guy $100 million, but he might go to jail next week just off of whatever actions that come of that. You know what I'm saying? So they're going to be nitpicky. And they're going to have major stipulations. So it's our choice to join their league or not join their league at the end of the day.
There's been enough black athletes who have played sports over the last 30 years where the salaries have been just unbelievable. They could start their own league if they wanted to. And it would be really, really interesting to see if we had a number of black athletes who are running their own league, what type of behavior they would allow, especially trying to attract television and corporate dollars.
You don't remember when they had that lockout for the NBA? Mm-hmm. What did the NBA players go do? Do you remember what they did? They went from city to city selling out arena after arena, Kevin Durant and LeBron James. And just as fast as, once they hit a major number, I don't remember what the number was, but they hit a major number, guess what the NBA did? You know what, lockout's over. Let's get these guys back over here because they don't need us to sell out these stadiums. So you got to think, we have enough power. You just can't be afraid to take that step.
Well, we're forgetting history too. I mean, when black Americans weren't allowed to play Major League Baseball, we owned our own league. If it were to start now and it could be owned by people of color, and they'd have to run the businesses, and they'd have to go out and get the sponsorships, and they'd have to go out and get the television contracts. But like I said, it would be really interesting to see if we were owning it. I mean, would we allow Colin Kaepernick to take a knee? Would we allow Richard Sherman to go off on a reporter after he does this interview after the game? It would be interesting to see how a black commissioner over a black league would correspond with that.
It'll definitely be sponsored by Cadillac.
I do drive a CTS, so. And it's black too.
But to keep it real with you, the footsteps that we might need to follow in that regard is somebody who initially came off very disruptive, but I think he knows what he's doing, is LeVar Ball. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. He has a lot of his games on Facebook, and he got the numbers up. We could do YouTube. You know what I'm saying? There's plenty of other networks that you will probably have to go to. Twitter. You just have to create a whole nother form, but it can be done.
So what did you think about A, Kaepernick kneeling, and B, how the NFL responded to it?
You have to understand they're not a commodity, they're human beings, and if we want them to, volunteer in our communities, we should also want them to stand up for what's right.
One of the problems with the anthem as a platform for expressing or making a stand on social issues is it's such a hot button reactive topic, the national anthem, because I've been out in the stands, and when they say please stand for the national anthem and take off your hats, if somebody doesn't take off their hat, there's someone next to me who's going, take off your hat, and they're about ready to fight them if they don't do it. So it's understandable to me why so many people reacted to, you're not immediately just thinking they're disrespecting the flag, disrespecting the nation, because they've been, and even myself, I've been raised my whole life that when the national anthem happens, you're supposed to, stand up, you take your hat off, if you do the Pledge of Allegiance, put your hand on your, that's just how I was raised, so I just thought that's how it's supposed to be. But I think that is so rooted that the problem is they can't get past that to even listen to the fact that there's a message behind why they're why they're doing what they're doing. They're too caught up in the issue itself of not standing up. They don't even want to look past that.
Is your point that it was a mistaken gesture on Kaepernick's part? I mean, I think everything that you say is true, but it's sort of like saying, if you come and work at NBC, that you shouldn't try and change how things go. I mean, that we're here to try and change things. The point is to try to revolutionize human consciousness. So, I think that it's really telling the ways in which Trump tries to sort of weaponize Kaepernick as a political symbol.
At the end of the day, we're asking them to be involved into something that they have built and created from ground zero off the backs of racism. And it just so happened that the race at the top of the pecking order is white. Now, if your race was at the top of the pecking order, would you be willing to give up that power? That's a question that we all gotta ask ourselves. So in every regard that they're trying to not give us something or hold us back or whatever, why would they give us equal to their power? Just to hand it to you, even though, yeah, we know we did you like this so many years ago. We can't just hand you this, y'all. Come on, man, like for real? And really clowning, because if I do that, then I'm really saying how bad the history of my family and the rest of the other families alike are. So you guys gotta accept what we're giving you at this point, or create it for yourself, create equal for yourself.
It's really hard to talk about race because the original sin of American history is obviously slavery. And there has never been a full discussion about reparations. And in a very strange way, Americans talk by indirection about American history through sports. I mean, if you want to know about the psyche of American culture, just listen to sports talk radio for 2 hours. It's all there. Whether it's Mouse in the Palace, it's Earl, it's Kaepernick, it's Sherman, that we all have, including obviously me, have trouble talking in a really candid way about race. And I feel, in my view, through sports, people talk about it in an upside down way.
It's complicated because African Americans, obviously, there's a history there, a deep history that defines the beginning of America. In my case, I don't have the history of that. I mean, I'm Filipino, so I'm just one of many different Asians and other cultures who've came to the States. But we've all faced some form of discrimination. I would love to see the day when I see more Asian Americans in sports. For sure. I want to see some Filipinos out there, catching some touchdowns. Now, Doug Baldwin, he's got a little Filipino in him, so he's like, yeah, Dougie. But you know what I mean? Most people don't look at Doug Baldwin and think he's Filipino. You have to actually bring it up and say, hey, you know what? He's actually part Filipino. But no, most people don't know that. But I proudly tell people if they'll listen to it. So for me, there's that part. And we got a long way to go, at least from the African American community. You guys have people out there. I can't even see them yet. So we have a long way to go to get our people out there. Right. But, change takes a long time, but we can't change the world overnight.
So I do want to give everybody an opportunity to just say any final words on race and sports and on this conversation of race and sports as a fan.
I think this was a great conversation that could probably go on for, weeks and years but, I think that one thing that sports does, it brings a lot of different people together that you might not necessarily, come in contact with in any other walk of life. And it gives you something that you can relate to with someone that you might not have anything in common with.
Basically, that's why I so welcome, whether it's Kaepernick or Earl Thomas or Sherman or whoever. I don't really believe that we can get past this, basically white fear and black rage by pretending it's not there. So anyone, whether all of us or athletes who are actually trying to push the conversation forward, I hugely welcome. And anyone who's trying to sweep that conversation under the rug, I really push back against, because I really think the only way to get past is to actually keep on talking.
Thank you all. Thank you all so much for coming to the table. I really appreciate it. I'm really glad. I hope you all enjoyed it.
Yes.
And I hope you guys can eat a little bit more food. Just a little bit more.
You guys will chat with me there.